Hey, it's the Chief Bonnie with Board Games. We're talking about There Grew a Kingdom. There Grew a Kingdom. This is a game out of Latvia from Monument Games. They contacted me, showed me some pictures, said, would you like to do a review? Yes, it looks gorgeous. We'll go in and show you some of these bits a little tighter, and I'll talk about them at the end. It was billed to me, first look, as a 4X game. That's the whole expand, exterminate, something, something, something. I can never remember all of it. I am going to tell you I made up my own acronym. I call it ECAP, which is expand. Not really, there's no exploring going on because you can see everything, but just for me. Expand, create, which is build the buildings, attack, and defend. And they're all really, really interlaced. So if there's anything you could probably get away with, now you still got to expand a little bit. But let me go in and show you. ECAP. All right, There Grew a Kingdom. Gorgeous board. I'm going to show you some of the outlaying areas here a little bit. Kind of think of movement or placement, almost like Catan. You're really working off of. I'm trying to get one of these out so I can show you. There you go. So it's simply a giant tile. It just fits in. There's some preset map layouts you can do, or you can just kind of set it up random. You have fields of what I call wheat, which get you gold. Grasslands, which will feed you. Forests give you wood. You have mountainous regions that will get you stone. I don't know if they're hills, maybe, because these ice mountains will get you iron. And what am I missing? Oh, if you are... I'm going to show you more of these in a little bit. Whoop. All right, it's got his little marker. These 3D pieces, so you can see this is blocking some of my own light. You can see the ship here. You can see the little river tributary, and then you can see some of the cool detail of this city, this walled city, and how it connects into the edge. So almost think of this as like an island. So if you're connected to the edge, you're going to get some free food, and you're going to be able to move around the edge. But your armies piece, very cool piece. So your armies and your cities sit on not the tile itself, but the angles where 3 tiles meet, or the center of where 3 tiles meet. So same thing with that city. You'll be collecting resources that are all based on very typical Euro style. So if forest was picked for an item, everybody would be able to collect. I'll get into turn order in a second, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wood. Let me rotate down, just show you a little bit more of the board. So a player, red player, would have this little cool lion. You're going to have these combat cards, which I will come back and explain in a little bit. Combat happens a lot more differently than you might expect. This beautiful player board, which has a very, let me get out of my shadow a little bit. I'm going to move some lighting. This player board has a beautiful 3D feel, but it's all just one flat piece. There are wood pieces on here, so this is like a track. I'll take a few still shots that I think will show, but these are ridges, almost like piano keys that float up, and this is your victory point tracker, or they call them glory points. So you have a similar frame around here. You have wooden frame, or a wooden piece that sits on here to show your wood, your stone, your food, your gold, your iron, how far your armies can move, which I bumped, and how big your armies are. You also have, you will be getting glory points based on, so once again, you have this little framed piece, and you will have some control over the movement of, are you going to get victory points based on how many cities you have? Are you just going to get 1 victory point and 1 good? or are you going to get 3 goods and give everyone else glory points? So you'll have some choices here. You'll have reserves for your army that are also on a 3D track, and a little chart here that I'll go into greater detail, which matches the cities which are sitting right over here. And you're saying, why do you got them laid out all weird? Well, let me zoom in on these a little bit. So first you'll notice the flip side, sorry, I'll keep the glare off, tells you a little bit of something about the city, as well as the shape will tell you. Now, obviously you can see the shapes a little clearer when they're on their flip side, but you can see how nice this 3D terrain is. So this would be a market city. So the yellow and then the little symbols here, you can see them. The game is from Latvia, by the way, so I don't know if this is just going to be production quality, if they've got that figured out. It is so beautiful. These are so fun to play with. They remind me of the Victory Point cutout wood pieces, but then they're glued together with a tile that has this art on it, and then the amount of defensive towers matter. The openness here, you can add in a gate later. I'll show you real quick. So later you can build like a portcullis that will wall in your city. I can do it one-handed. There you go. Sits in seamlessly almost and just looks cool. These are neat. Now you got to grab a lot of resources. It's a resource game. You got to grab a lot of resources, and I'm going to get into that in a second on how this works. They build it as a 4X. I would say maybe a 2X, maybe a 3X. I don't get the explore portion. That's all right. So just to explain the city. So you've got a market, and what a market will give you is a resource exchange. You can always exchange 5 resources for any of the same type for any other resource, a single resource. If you have this, you can exchange any 4 resources to get any 2 resources. Very valuable. Moving on to what is purple and what you will call your religious. Let me get the angle right. Your religious city. Bring my hand down. The city allows you to buy reserve soldiers for each, paying 3 gold. So I'm going to cover these a little quicker. Again, take a cool look so you can see the religious. Sorry, we got a storm coming in and I'm maybe too close on my light. So you can see one side, and then there's the flip side. Let me get my fortress city. So you can see right away we got the crossed swords. You got what kind of looks like a castle. Well, there's a reason. There's 4 of these defensive castles, and they will be much better at defending if a invading army comes to pay it a visit. Then you have your science city, which I already talked about a little bit, or at least pointed at. It's this, dang, I keep working glare. Sorry, guys. It's this triangle. So you got a triangle looking city. Looks very cool. Again, the portcullis fits just like any other city, but during an army's battle, and I'll get into the battle phase later, you will actually get the explosive card in your hand. It's an extra bonus card. I'll explain that when we get into combat. And again, I already showed you kind of my favorite city of all time is the port city. What's nice is you can spend a boot, which is movement for your armies, and you can move your army from one location to one location that's along the edge of the sea. Again, think of the border as an island. Oh, it also gives you 2 food. Hello. But I love this one. This is probably my favorite. Just the detail that went into this piece, I love. And the way it just fits right into the edge. So to just show you some of the elements, the figure, or the pawn, that actually will also match the name face on your card. So if you look at this one, you got this cool dragon, awesome dragon even. There's a little dragon card over there. You'll have your pawn, which is going to represent your army. It will generally, well, it will at first start within your capital city. And for your capital city, you will have a larger little token. So you can see one's small, one's large. If you end up filling in multiple cities, you can show which one is your capital and which one is just a city that you've either built or conquered. Your goal will be to, well, you can have several goals. Your goal is really just to get these glory points, be the first to get to the top of your glory track, and you will win. However, along the way, there's a lot of different strategies you can use. So I'm just going to walk you through your turn. I'll show you this very cool city that's not only got its portcullis in, it's got a defensive tower that is struck out. So you could strike out here, and it is also, you can see just a little bit of that water coming back. It's a port city as well. So I'll walk you through how a turn goes real quick, but just to give you those pieces, you've only got one army that's out there. So it's not like you're moving multiple armies. You have one. So that army could be playing a defensive nature in order to protect your cities, or it's out conquering and trying to burn down other people's cities, or simply threaten them a little bit so they can't go out and expand as nicely as they would like to. So you've got a very helpful card, first of all. It's going to, if I can get it to focus, right, it's going to tell you what you can trade your goods in for. So you're going to have gold for boots, and you can get 2 wood, 2 stone in order to build a new city that doesn't have a portcullis. You need the 2 food and the 2 wood to build that portcullis. This adds off the little tower that comes off. Boom, nice and protective. Come back in, focus, come back in. And this would be iron buying you a reserve soldier unit. All right, at the start of the turn, you're going to be looking at this card here for your step orders. What is called the 0th step. Yes, it's got a 0 and a TH. That bothers me a little bit, but we're going to go with it. At your 0th step, you're going to take a look at your army. So I'm red and I have 1 army. Now I've just moved the dragon purples over here. But I should have him out 1 step away. Boom, he's 1 step away, which means he's on the intersection. That's just 1 length away from the city. If I was in that position, which represents this, I'm going to go up 1 glory point. My glory points sit here. There's a track. I would go up 1 glory point. You can see that center deal is right where it starts. If I get it all the way to the top, I will win. If, however, I was inside that city, which is displayed by this iconography, which is okay. But if I was inside that city, I would gain 3 glory points. So instead of 1, I would go up 3. And my opponent, purple in this case, his little pip is underneath my lion, he would lose 3. So you want to defend your cities. It's a 6-point swing going on there. And then I would have the option, do I burn it down, taking that city completely off the board and putting it over this way back into the general supply, so anybody else can build it if they want? Or do I feel lucky? Can I occupy it? If I want to occupy it, I put my pip in there, and it's now a city that I've got to manage and occupy. Now I'll give you a little thing. I've played a few games, and if you get too many cities going, you only have 1 army running around here on the board. And you can't be everywhere at once. So you end up in these very interesting push and pulls. But that's your 0th step. Your first step, or what they're calling start action. So now I'm from my 0th start action to my first start action. This tells you that we're down in this area here, this little slider. Wherever I positioned it, I'm going to have a chance to move it here in a second. So it's positioned dead in the center. If it's positioned right in the middle, I am going to get a glory point. So I'm going to go up 1 if I were to do so, if I can get my finger in the right area. And I'm going to get a good of my choice. My goods are just slightly down below here. We'll take a look at them again in a little bit. I think I've showed them to you a couple times already. But that is what I would get if I was at this position. Now, I will show you when this gets the chance to change here in a little bit, but we can imagine if it was up at this position, so it's kind of locked in. This thing sits down in a track. and it holds it nicely. If I were up here, I would get a glory point for every city I have. So it may be well worth my ability to flip some cities, or I've got a couple of my own, flip a couple more, bam, now I'm sitting on 5 glory points, and maybe I can push this to a quick victory. Usually you're going to get targeted. This is a game where the other players need to be paying attention to what's going on, and you kind of go after the leader. Kind of. You should. But we'll see more of that in a little bit. So you would get more victory points for every city you have. Or I could have started off way down here, which is going to give me 3 goods. But I'm going to announce that I'm getting these goods, but my people basically aren't happy. This is supposed to be like a happiness meter. My people aren't happy. I guess I'm making them work very, very hard to give me goods. And so I end up giving a glory point, 1 glory point, to every other player at the table. This leads us to what is called our second start action. Now you can see there's this like rainbow arrow up or down, and it shows the glory points. This is the point at which I'm going to determine what am I going to want it to do when it comes back to my turn. So I could decide, you know what, I want to leave it right there. I'm pretty confident that's going to be good for me. I don't think I'm going to need a lot of goods. Or I plan on holding on to a whole bunch of cities, and I'm going to put it up here. The point here, clearly, you are tipping your hand slightly, slightly, to all your opponents, saying, hey, look, he's going to score a whole bunch of victory points right now if we don't go sack a couple of his cities. I like this point, the pre-staging, the little tipping of what I may have planned in the future is actually quite a nice touch. All right, I'm going to slide down. We're going to get to see the goods. So we're looking at our goods, and we're looking at our reserve soldiers here. So the third start action is actually broken into 3 parts. The very first one is you're going to pick up a reserve soldier for every 2 completed cities that you own. So I'm going to come in and be able to slide up. I have 3 right now. So I would be able to slide up 1 reserve, for every 2. And since I only have 3, I'm going to just slide up 1 spot. This is the point wherein if you have a city, which I just got, which is now off the record here, off the track, but if you have a city next to the sea, you're going to pick up a food. So my guys are out fishing. And then this is the point where I'm going to select a resource. So again, you look at the board. Let me move up. I can select any resource that is touching my 1 city or any of my other cities. So I've taken 3 now. So if I needed wood, by far, I could activate this city, and I'm going to pick up 5. Now, if anybody else is sitting along some woods, I've taken this, but if my opponent purple was still here, he'd get 2 woods as well, or she. Maybe I've already grabbed woods in a prior turn, and I don't really need it, but I wanted to get some gold. Well, I can say I'm activating this section of what I call wheat. Basically, I'm going to get gold for it, and I would then come back down to my player board, and I would trigger my 3 gold for the section, and everybody else would look at the map and where their cities intersect, and they would move their pieces accordingly. This is a nice touch. You can only max out at 5. So again, let's assume that I'd used wood last time and maybe even burned a couple to build something. It may not be worth it for me to activate wood again. I'm only going to get 2 out of it. I might be giving my opponents a resource that they clearly want to use. It does matter, I should point out, because if I had another neighboring city that was, say, right over here, all right, I've added in an extra city here. The reason is I wanted to show you 5 woods would be a great place to set up, and it's going to cause conflict. So if I am activating this area, and there's someone else in here that's equal to me, we're going to share the resources. Now, if I'm activating and there's someone that's even dominant, they have 2 cities in this area, we're simply going to share the resources. There could even be an equal and a dominant, and we'll work out whatever the ratio is to share equally. Where it gets a little bit interesting is if I happen to be the dominant force, let's say I had 2 in here, and I'm the activator as well, I will not have to share with those that are less dominant. So there's a big power struggle going on there. At least when I activate, I will, if I'm dominant, keep those for myself. What this means is, being dominant, this guy may come around on his turn as the less dominant, still, or gal, still activate the area, but if they're less dominant, they're going to have to share with me equally, even on their turn, if I'm dominant or equal. Hopefully that makes sense. It really encourages the conflict in those target-rich resource environments. Sliding back down to my goods area. So you're going to really be pushing for resources in order to build things. Hello, hold on to the card. You can change resources in. It's a 4-to-1 ratio unless you have the market. And the market makes it a trade in 4 resources and get 2. You do get into an issue where the size of your army, the bigger your army is, the more boots you have to spend to move it. You can voluntarily reduce your army in order to not spend as many boots, but just know big armies are a lot harder to move around. So by spending a boot, so if I spin a boot, I would be able to move an army of size 1 could move up to 5. If it was an army of size 2, I'm moving 4. If it's 3, I'm only moving 3. If it's 4, I'm moving 2. And if it's a big old army, I spend a boot, I can only move 1. I actually love that push and pull mechanic. So if I've got this one single big army, the army, are not very movable. You can trade in your army at any time and pick up 5 boots. So it's a quick way to shed some troops, pick up a bunch of boots. But I love this. You only have the one army. You want it to be powerful, but then it turns into this sloth, this eating horde that you can't maneuver. However, if it's an army of 1, it can dash all over, which is great for establishing areas where you can build cities, but it is not good for conquering somebody else's city. So not only do they telegraph, meaning the other players telegraph a little bit of what they're looking or planning to do by the size of their army, it's a balancing act if they even start to come after you. Also, let me set this down, once you build your city, it's still open. So if I had this going, and I call it a portcullis, it's a gatehouse, it's a huge city. But if it's built down on the map and I haven't put in my gatehouse yet, the defenses, which are these 2 towers are equivalent to 2 armies, or an army that's size 2. They're not into effect until you build your gatehouse. Once that gatehouse comes in, not only do you now have a completed city, all right, by the way, you can still use these special things that the cities do even if they're not completed, but not only do I have a completed city, the city now has the ability to defend itself times 2. However, if I built this military complex, this city is way more powerful and it can defend times 4. We'll get into combat in a second, but by the way, take a look at that. You can just see how these have been layered on from the cut wood. Just gorgeous. So, gatehouse is in, completed city. So you're moving through steps where you're moving your army around, because you can only build a city that's at least 2 steps, 2 intersections away from another city. Once the city's built, one of your actions, if you've got the goods, is to then build the gatehouse. You can then come in and build, I'm going to pan up, and you can build this defensive tower that extends out along the edge 1 step out, and it looks cool. All right, I want to attack from here and come in 1 step and attack this defensive, or the city, but I got to get through the defensive tower. So first, when I hit that location of the tower, I have to stop. I'm now going to check, is the city completed? Yes, it has a gatehouse. How many protective towers does it have? 2. Then I'm going to look at my army, and if my army is not equal to those 2 protective towers, I'm going to lose an army strength. So if I was only a 2, that army would drop to 1. I would take a hit in my siege. Now if I have 3 and they have 2, I'm fine. I've been stopped, but I don't take the loss in my army strength. If I'm moving my own unit through and I've spent boots, I can continue my movement. So one of the key factors of this defensive tower, even if I know I'm a little weaker, I don't have the 4-tower defense military special here, which would be great with the defensive towers, by the way, but it's going to check that movement, which may give my army who's off doing something up to the north here time to come down and defend my city. If I still have boots left, or it would allow me to take a step, and I'm not reduced, I get to destroy that defensive tower, and now, if I still have boots left, I could move in and assault the city, and this would go back to supply. Again, look how cool. I can get it to pop in. I love it. All right, you're going to conduct military actions if you're 1 step away from either an opponent's city or an opponent's army. All right, 2 armies are meeting in battle. Now, it really does matter if they're out in the field or if they're inside their cities. The battles are going to take place using your deck of cards. So the first thing is, this is the damage to a warrior or a surrender flag. I'm going to just set these down. This is going to go into my hand of cards. Now, depending on the size of my army, so again, when we're down looking at my chart, my armies can be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I only have 1 army, and that's it. So it could be 5, it could be 4, 3, 2, or 1. However many I have of the armies, I'm going to be putting these shields in. Let's just pretend it's 3. So I'm going to throw in these as well. Now, had I had the full component of a 5 army, I would have added this in, and this would also go in if I were inside my capital city. You can tell the capital city by the larger pip over the smaller pip. I'm not going to put this in my hand, but I will be showing you as we draw cards earlier. This would be very powerful. Basically, if drawn by my opponent, their army would immediately lose 1. But that won't be in for this point in time. If I were in a city, this counts as walls, and it does a very similar thing. If it gets drawn, we're not in a city, but if it got drawn, it would do damage. The peasants count as basically militia. That would add to your force as well. Again, if you're in a city, it doesn't have to be your capital. A lot of city combat, you're getting the field. This is a bomb. If you are in what I like to call Triangle City, Triangle City is a science city. And if you're in a science city, your guys are smart and they make bombs. Basically, if it's a city that's being defended or being attacked, you get to add this into your deck as well. It's not. I'm going to show you very basic combat. And you also have the King's card. The King's card is part of the advanced rules, which I'm going to briefly cover later near the end of my explanation. So, we've got it very basic. You've seen that a lot of fights are going to go on in cities. I would shuffle these up. My opponent picks however many armies he has, or she. We're not in a city there as well. And whoever the defender is gets to actually select cards first. Let's pretend I attacked. The defender goes, well, they're looking at the backside of my cards, and they select this one. It just lays down. I don't take a hit or anything. It's just one of my army cards has been selected. I reach across, select one of theirs. Just to show you how we progress, they come in and they actually select my damage or surrender card. If I can get it to land where you can see it, one of 2 things is going to happen. I can either take a loss, 1 loss to my army unit, and then I have to retreat away from the battle. So it's got to go down that line or that line. I can't go at my attacker or defender. I've got to go back and away. And I've got to go the equivalent of one boot. So you remember, depending on the size of your army, one boot can send you as far as 5 steps away, or 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe just 1 step away. So that's all based on the size of the army, but I could lose a unit and retreat the required number of steps. I can also just stand, and I can take a loss. I'll lose 1 unit step. So if I have an army of 3, I'm down to an army of 2, and I simply take this card back into my hand. So having taken the card back in my hand, I can shuffle again, and now I'm going to choose from my opponent, and then my opponent chooses again. So they could pick, if they got lucky, or obviously my odds are down, they got a 1 in 3 chance of hitting me again. Where it gets very interesting is I am inside a city that is a science city. The card, when picked, doesn't do any damage, but it doesn't do any damage to me or to him. It's also returnable to my hand. Pitchfork works exactly the same as an army, so I basically have the extra card. So when the surrender card's picked, if I don't, or the defeat card, if I don't surrender back and I just take my unit loss, when I return this card to my hand, I can also bring back one of my returnable cards if they've been plucked. So again, the returnable cards is a wall card. I could pull back a peasant's card, the science building or explosive card. Those are all returnable, and they will go back in my hand, basically beefing my hand up so it's a lot harder to choose this. Because if it's harder for my opponent to pick it, eventually I'm going to get it out of his or her hand. All right, so you say, how does this shebang end? Well, there's actually a few victory conditions. So on my turn, I must get my glory point track all the way to the top. But that's not enough. My army must also, sliding up, be located in my capital. So again, the bigger pip, that's my capital. It's the very first city I put down on the board. So I've got to get my army in the capital. Glory points have to be all the way up at the top. And there can't be any other armies from other players either in my cities, boom, can't win there, or even a step away from them. That's hard. You then add up everybody else's glory points to see who gets second, third, fourth, or ultimately maybe even last. And that is, there grew a kingdom. All right, we're back. You've seen the bits. You've seen what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you these bits again because they are clearly the favorite thing. These are gorgeous. I don't know if they can be mass-produced or not, but they are phenomenal. The way the gatehouse fits into all of these and makes it a completed city, wonderful touch. Wonderful, wonderful touch. The bits where your armies are these wooden tokens that move around on the board, gorgeous. The ability to have your buildings do interactions, not even getting into the advanced or expert level, I think is what they call it. Nice, nice touch. The board looks good. The layout's nice. It almost has a 3D feel on your player board. All right, so there's the aspects of it. The bits are top-notch. Love them. Gameplay. This game is, it can be a little mean. I don't mind that. My player group doesn't mind it. I have not played the expert level. We're going to talk about the expert stuff in there, and the designer flat out says it's designed to be played at the expert level. But then there's the caveat of do not play this unless everybody at the table's mastered the basics. Okay, well, we had not mastered the basics here. So I haven't played the expert level. I've fiddled around with them a little bit. I've read them. I definitely agree, play with the expert level, but you got to get everybody up to speed first. Get them on the mechanics. So the whole idea, you're building, you've got a city, special kind of city, it's your capital. You're gathering in the goods, depending on the intersections that you're sitting on, and everybody else is getting some too, depending on their dominance. The idea that you want to send forth your one and only army. You don't have a lot of dudes on the map. You either got a light, fast, little army that can really help you expand, but it's not going to be worth anything in fighting, maybe threatening, or you've got a behemoth that can barely move. When he gets there, he's going to do some damage, but your home front's probably in big trouble. Okay? I love that. Love it. That is so restrictive because you're not building a bunch of dudes on a map. You're building, maybe, if you choose, a big, powerful army that is then extremely costly to move around. They eat a lot. They're hard to organize. It is both thematic and fun. Great, great choice. Not to mention the double duty, the triple duty. You got to get them out. If you're going to build a city, it's got to be 2 steps away from any other city. Okay, well, you're going to have to move out with your army. If you want to go out and get glory points, you got to go threaten other cities, other players, or siege their cities, take their cities, hopefully uncompleted. Take them for your own, great, maybe hard to control, or burn them. I don't need this city, I don't want this city, it's too far away, I'm just torching it. Good. In the meanwhile, this guy's out doing, this army group's out doing its thing. What's happening in the homeland? What's happening? I love that. So you want to go out, go forth and do stuff, but if you got a huge beast of an army, you're slow to get there and you're slow to get back. Enough said on that. I love that aspect of it. It really encompasses the heart of it. Well, let's talk about, so I like the resources, how dominance matters, but even if you're the triggering player, you can still share in the goods even though you're not dominant. But it gives you a reason to push for dominance. Dominance being you have more cities in a region. Maybe there's, like in my example of a 5 wooded tile region, there's going to be a lot of conflict around that. Maybe you're a wise player and you're like, you know what, I don't need to go battle for the 5 wood. I'll go settle for the 3. And by the way, there's a beautiful stone area there too. Whatever. So there's enough of that going on with your map layout. Well, hold on. Before the final thing I'll do is go into what's called some game guidelines and useful tips. I love these. They're kind of humorous, but they're serious, but they also apply to way more than just this game as far as AP. This can be an AP killing game. We'll get back to that in a little bit. We're going to talk about the expert level rules. So in the expert level rules, you can layer in a king. That king is going to have king elements, which are these very unique special abilities. There's 5. You can have up to 5 players. You've got king's special powers, which there's a whole host of them. I don't know, what is it? 12? I'm just glancing. I can't even remember the number. There's a ton of them. You've got some chance cards. You've got an extra action that you can take during the game. My son's wandering up on me while I'm talking here, so I'm going to...
She has a flat tire.
Who does?
Mom.
I'm going to have to stop. My wife has a flat tire.
She said she's close to you.
All right, I'm back. Crisis averted, tire destroyed, wife rescued. It's a good day. I feel like I'm in the kingdom. All right, we covered some of the expert rules. I don't quite remember where I left off. I know I was letting you know about the king, the king's elements. You also have king's special powers. Not sure if I covered it or not. I'll cut this out if not. The cities, not only being cool, but in the expert level, they also have cards that come with them where the type of city you have will also give you little special powers. Love, love, love that. Let me see. There's a few other things in the expert rules, but those are the biggest. So, oh, I know what I wanted to show. All right. So the designer or the company has put out 8 little tips that will, it says game guideline and useful tips. Now these caught me as kind of humorous. They're serious and they kind of apply to many different games, but there were some charming elements to these. So they first tell you that we strongly recommend to follow the game guideline that they're going to lay down here. Otherwise, the game length can increase up to 2 times, which can cause unnecessary tension among players! Exclamation point. Yes, it could. This game has that AP option. So I love this. First, player who has his turn can express his opinion about what happens in the game, but other players are completely silent and follow the actions made by the player whose turn it is. That's not what happens when I play this. There's a little bit more. When this player asks you a question or offers a deal, you must respond, but only with yes or no. That is helpful, but not how we play it. There's a lot of table talk. I love table talk, by the way, but not a bad tip, and I could see it keeping things right down the line. Second, I love this, but again, not always our group. During your turn, you must comment loud and clear the action you are about to take, and only then you must perform those actions. For example, you say, I'm buying 2 boots for my army, paying 2 gold for that. And they have another example after that that I won't go into. It is nice to be very clear on what you're going to do, and you really should do that. It's helpful. Whoever's teaching the game is usually pretty good about kind of making sure everybody stays on track. Let's see, we're going to skip the third one. It talks about the rules are compulsory, sure. Top 4th and 5th have some similar deals where if you forget something or you mess something up and somebody catches it, they can yell out, stop! And then if you can fix it, you fix it. And it goes into some greater detail on that as well. I just found the stop all in bold and quoted was kind of interesting. That wouldn't work at our table either. Somebody usually goes, hey, I'm not sure you can do that. Or, hey, did you forget to do that? Or you say yourself, hey, it hasn't affected anybody, but I forgot to mark my resources or something. That's all fine. I'm going to do one more. There was one more on here. Okay, here we go. The 6th one. I love this. And this is all good. Respect other players, yes, who you play with, and respect their time, of course. So this is directly right at AP. Please make the actions during your turn without delay and without lots of thinking. If there is a moment, I'm always accused of making a lot of play without thinking properly. If there is a moment during your turn where you are unable to decide your next action, happens to me sometimes, please end your turn and think about your future actions. I feel like it's like you need to have contrition. Your future actions while other players take their turns. I get it. I totally agree. About the only time this will get me is I kind of know what I want to do. Somebody throws a curveball at me and I'm like, whoa. And then I'm adjusting a little bit, trying to figure out. Again, the game can slide into some AP. Yeah, it talks about think about your kingdom's defenses, walls, and towers. Oh, if any player wants to leave the game, he or she can, it's he, but I'll say he or she can do so at any time. Everything in his control panel or hers is removed, but his or her cities stay on the game area, symbols, and kingdoms. This actually is a pretty good one. Remember, there is player elimination. 6th is my favorite. And 1st, where it's about everybody, all the other players are completely silent. There's a lot of table talk if you play with me. I'll be zinging it around. I may be making suggestions. I may be calling out, hey, if we don't stop, blah, 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 he's going to blue-doo-doo, and then she's going to come down, she's going to get a city. So, but it does extend the time. I just love that. I found that cool, and it's not quite how my group played, but I found those charming. All right. I think I'm good. I think I'd explained enough of where I was at when the tire flat emergency came in, and we should be good to go. Life is real. There grew a kingdom, a charming ECAP game. ECAP. Cheap. See you guys later. Bonding with board games.